Got it. Notification. There's always, I feel like I say this every week. There's like this weird, like 15-second period where I don't know if we're live or not because it hasn't shown up on Facebook and we're good. It's confirmed. We have confirmed launch, everybody. We are on our way to the moon and back. That's a weird way to start tonight. Hey, happy Monday. Happy November 1st. I have no idea what happened to October. I feel like it was like September 20th, and then I woke up and people were trick-or-treating and it freaked me out. October went really fast. We're into November. At least here in Oklahoma City, it finally is feeling a little bit like fall outside. It's totally jacket and sweater weather, and I'm digging it. We're happy that you're here. You could be doing 1,000 different things tonight, including Monday Night Football. It's football season, but you're not. You're choosing to be with us while we do the live stream, and we appreciate that. So if you're not familiar with Parents Helping Parents, we're an Oklahoma-based nonprofit organization with the mission of offering resources, shared experience, and education to parents who have children any age that might be struggling with a substance use disorder. The primary way we do that is by hosting some local chapters across the state of Oklahoma, support groups for parents to come and get that education, to get that peer support, and to get connected with those resources. Obviously, some of those chapters are continuing to meet in an online format because of the COVID pandemic. Some of those chapters are back to live meetings. So I want to encourage you, if you're in Oklahoma, go ahead and get onto our website, parentshelpingparents.info, to see if there's a chapter close to you, so that you can potentially get plugged in with parents in your area that can offer support. This live stream and this online engagement is fantastic, and we're really happy that we can offer that for families and parents that need it. But there is nothing better than being in a room full of people that can offer you like physical, there, in-person support. And so if you're close to one of our local chapters, we'd love you to get plugged in. Again, you can find that information at www.parentshelpingparents.info. Also, if you're catching this on YouTube or you're catching this on somebody else's news feed, be sure to follow us on Facebook at Parents Helping Parents Inc. That's where you can stay up to date with all the cool stuff that we're up to, and all of our upcoming projects and events and things like that. So speaking of your news stream, if you haven't yet, reach up, click the like button, click the share button. I don't think people ever really realize how big of an impact it has when you share our live videos on your social media feed. It exponentially increases the amount of people that we can reach. And I guarantee you, we're post-pandemic, we're kind of mid-post-pandemic. Who knows what the hell's going on with pandemic? The point is, it's been a really long couple of years for lots of people. Mental health issues are on the rise, substance abuse issues are on the rise. And as long as you have more than 50 friends on your Facebook page, which most of you do, most of you have several hundred, I guarantee you there's somebody in your friends list that needs to hear tonight's message. So sharing this could actually save somebody's life. It could really be helpful in getting a message of hope to families who might be struggling. So go ahead and hit the share button, share the wonderful things that we're up to. So I'm excited about our guest tonight. She's a long friend of mine, a local clinician, and the program director for a wonderful organization here in Oklahoma City that serves a much needed role in our recovery community. So I'm going to bury the lead a little bit and not tell you anymore. And then I'll just pass it over to Anna so that she can go ahead and get started. Anna, thanks for being here. You've got the floor. I'll be hanging around and we can have some discussion towards the end, but it's all you, girl.
All right. Thank you, Derek. I appreciate this opportunity to visit with Parents Helping Parents. It's one of my favorite organizations. Always good information and good support to be found there. So just like you said, I really encourage people to share this information, share the video, share the live stream. There's a lot of people out there who really could benefit from Parents Helping Parents that maybe don't even really know about it. So just the introduction, my name's Anna, and I am the program director for Teen Recovery Solutions, and it is the state's only high school exclusively for adolescents who are in recovery from addiction. We have the high school, and then in conjunction with the high school, we do have a recovery program that we call our alternative peer group. And a little bit later in my talk, I'll probably go into some more detail as far as that goes, and just kind of what that looks like for our community, and how, if someone is interested in finding more about us, how they can contact us and get more information. One of the things that we do offer that I wanted to just mention right off the bat is we do offer a parent support group on Monday evenings, and that is open to any parent who is dealing with an adolescent who is struggling with substance abuse issues. And that meeting is at 5 until 6:30 at All Souls Church in Oklahoma City. It's at 63rd and Penn. And while we have our parent support meeting, we also have a 12-step meeting for the adolescents, which is also open to any adolescent who would like to explore 12-step recovery. So you've touched on a really important subject, which is the pandemic and how the pandemic has impacted mental health and has impacted substance abuse as well, because we know those two things go hand in hand. I'm actually doing a presentation tomorrow night for a group specifically on mental health and adolescence and the pandemic. And as I was doing my research, some statistics really jumped out at me specific to Oklahoma. Since 2007, the rates of suicide in children ages 10 to 24, which that's kind of 24 is kind of the new end of adolescence. It has risen 103% since 2007. That is a big change. In comparison, nationally, that number has risen 43%. So we're at more than double the rate of the rest of the United States. In Oklahoma, suicide is the second leading cause of death in ages 10 to 24. And specifically with males, it's risen 101%, and with females, it's risen 111%. And of those, 90% had an underlying mental health diagnosis. On average per year in Oklahoma, in that age group, 533 people complete suicide. The number one associated situation is intimate partner issues. So breakups, friendships, those kinds of relationships that are so important to our adolescents, they really contribute to the suicide rate. Number two would be one or more mental health disorders. And of those people, 20% did have co-occurring substance abuse issues. And the reason that's so important to talk about and to look at, especially in our adolescents and youth, is that substance use and abuse actually lowers inhibitions, lowers thought process, increases impulsivity, which increases the risk of suicidality and completion of suicide. So it's very important to look at that in conjunction with all the other mental health type things. So in 2021 alone, in Oklahoma, Integris Mental Health from June until July of this year reported a 117% increase in emergency room visits by children and adolescents for suicidality. January to June, Integris alone had 332 admissions, and St. Francis in Tulsa reported an 84% increase in mental health related admissions for children and adolescents. It's no surprise that Oklahoma rates in the bottom 10 states as far as child well-being, and adolescents are included with children. I'm sure they would probably argue with that, but they are. So Oklahoma is struggling to support our children and our adolescents with their mental health issues and also with their substance abuse issues. It's a very serious issue that we have in our state. Anyone who works in this field, anyone who's tried to obtain help for an adolescent struggling with these kinds of issues knows that it can be very difficult to get the help that they need, long-term treatment. The beds are very limited in Oklahoma. I know with my work, we usually end up sending our teens to programs in Texas, in Nashville, or in Arkansas. So that's really hard on families when that has to happen, because it's not really conducive to overall family healing when you have to go out of state. So yeah, Oklahoma really needs to do better. It's kind of my soapbox. So now I will kind of look at how we support our adolescents and how we support our children who might be struggling with this issue. And first of all, it's really important to understand what we're dealing with and what that really does look like for our youth. Alcohol is one of the most abused substances because it's very easy for teens to obtain. Many parents have alcohol in their liquor cabinets that even if you lock it up, trust me, your kid's going to find a way to get to it. And so statistics show that 19% of all alcohol consumed in the United States is consumed by those who are ages 12 to 20. That's a big percentage of people that are consuming alcohol that are way too young. 72% of all 12th graders report that they have consumed alcohol, and 37% of 8th graders have consumed alcohol. 21% of those teens reported binge drinking in the past 30 days of this survey. And 90% of the alcohol that is consumed by adolescents is done so through binge drinking, which is extremely dangerous. Adolescents don't really have that turnoff switch that adults do. Some adults do. And they can very quickly become way too intoxicated, and alcohol poisoning is a real possibility with that. Adolescents are 7 times more likely to be involved in an alcohol-related accident, and underage drinkers consume much more per occasion than adult drinkers do. So even if they're not binge drinking, they're still consuming a lot more alcohol than an adult does. 74% of adults who are in treatment report that they had their first drink before the age of 17. So that's obviously a big indicator of future serious alcohol problems. So, on top of just the unsafe behavior of the alcohol consumption, the behaviors that go with it can be very dangerous, such as driving intoxicated, driving with someone who's intoxicated, not wearing seatbelts when you're in the car, distracted driving, sexual behaviors, dangerous sexual behaviors are much higher, and sexual assault is also much higher when there's alcohol involved. Alcohol actually kills more young people than any other drug out there. So alcohol is a very serious problem. In my work, the number one substance that we're dealing with is THC, marijuana. That's very prevalent right now, even much more so since it's become medically legal in Oklahoma. The teens that are consuming THC now are consuming a very different type and different strength of THC than maybe had been consumed in the past. So this is medical grade that they're getting, and the THC content is much higher, much more concentrated, and much more powerful. And the teens now, they use they dab and use the dab pens, and so sometimes there's no odor, so it's very hard to detect. I know in our work, it's just really it's something that we're seeing more and more and more, and it's really difficult for the teens because it is extremely available. It is very easy to obtain. If they are active on Snapchat, it takes 2 seconds for them to find what they want. So just some statistics on THC use. In the survey that was done in 2017, more high school students reported smoking marijuana than they did smoking cigarettes. 10% of A students reported use of THC, while 48% of D and F students reported use. 13% who began use as a teen develop a dependency later on, and you can become dependent. 35% of 12th graders reported smoking in the last year, and 6% reportedly used on a daily basis. 21% had used in the last month. Girls, this was interesting to me. Girls ages 14 to 15 who used daily were 5 times more likely to have serious clinical depression by the age of 21 than girls who did not. And obviously, marijuana use is higher in states with medical marijuana, 38% versus 33%, which kind of surprised me. I figured it would be a lot higher. That just shows that it's just extremely accessible no matter what. But in states where it is legalized, it is a much higher concentration. Other substances that we see that we deal with are inhalants, amphetamines, Adderall, prescription drugs, opioids, synthetic marijuana is a big one because it doesn't, well, now they're smart because as soon as we have a drug test that can detect it, they change the formula. So it's just kind of a keeping up type of a situation. Cough syrup is a big one. We've seen upswing in cocaine use, which has been surprising, but it's very inexpensive and it's very easy to get. Same with hallucinogenics, LSD, acid shrooms, that kind of thing. That's also pretty prevalent. Heroin and meth, always there. Surprisingly, they're very inexpensive and it's very easy to obtain those substances. So I want to talk just for a minute about what you need to be looking for in your teen if you suspect something might be going on with them. So sometimes to look for are behavior changes. Now with all adolescents, it seems like adolescence is just one change after another change after another change. But these are very, very serious changes, big changes, things like becoming much more isolated, changing their peer groups. I was talking with someone today, in fact, who said that they knew that their child was having some real issues because the names that they were talking about with their friend group started to change. The friends that they had been talking about slowly faded out and new names were replaced. And so they were like, something's up here. And they were right. Changes like turning off their location on their cell phone. If they're doing that, if you have like Life 360, they turn off their location like, oh, sorry, I didn't know. No, they knew. So that's a red flag to look out for because they're somewhere that they're not supposed to be or they don't want you to see where they are. Mood changes, also mood instability. Again, that's part of adolescence, part of normal teen stuff. But what you're looking for are things that are out of the norm, like extreme highs, extreme lows, extreme lability in their moods, extreme anger, depression, being very defensive, being verbally aggressive or violent with family members, running away, sneaking out, those kinds of things. Also looking at their personality. If your bubbly child suddenly becomes very apathetic, disconnected, doesn't seem like anything really makes them happy anymore, that's a big red flag. Their productivity decreases, their impulsivity increases, negative interactions with family, school, friends, those things start to increase, and grade changes, decrease in grades, not refusing to go to school, skipping school, things like that. Physical changes that you might notice with your child. Obviously, one is the glassy eyes, bloodshot eyes, weight changes. If they suddenly gain a lot of weight or suddenly lose a lot of weight, that is something to notice. A decline in their overall hygiene, in their self-care, when they start to really neglect themselves, they're not showering, they're not brushing their teeth, they're not taking good care of their bodies. If they're shaking, have a lot of tremors, unexplained bruises, being very drowsy, And of course, if you find your child with paraphernalia, such as pipes, lighters, scales, vapes, the dab pens, torches, balloons, needles, and this was from my own experience in my household. If all of a sudden all your spoons are gone, that's a red flag. All my spoons disappeared and I couldn't find spoons anywhere, and I found them in my son's room, and there was a reason that they were there. Other signs, if you see that all of a sudden they're starting to burn incense, using like bottles of eye drops like crazy, chewing lots of gum, refusing to take their medications, such as like mental health medications. This was another thing that showed up in my house. All of a sudden in my son's trash can, there were like boxes and boxes and boxes of quercetin. So he was using cold medicine. Quercetin in particular is one that they will use to, there's actually websites that will tell them, if you use this much, it's this effect. If you use this much, it's this effect. And you can actually overdose on it. So it's definitely something to look out for. Dimetapp, Mucinex, dextromethorphan, they abuse all of those drugs or all those cold medicines. Look out for your school changes, truancies, tardies, sleeping in class, refusing to complete their homework, suddenly has a bad attitude, quits their extracurricular activities that they really liked, showing a poor memory. They stop sharing important information with you related to school, things that they normally would have had no trouble talking to you about, they're not telling you about. So once you start to realize that there's an issue or a problem with your teen, the next thing that you need to figure out is where are they in this process of using? Because there's different levels, and at the various levels of use, you have various types of interventions that you can utilize. So there's use, misuse, abuse, and dependence. So use would be very infrequent, maybe in a social setting. They're not really using it as a coping mechanism. It's experimentation. So usually with that, how a kiddo will come across my office when they're at this stage is if their school has done a drug test, specifically with athletics. So usually if they've had a drug test, they've tested positive, they come, I meet with them, and we determine that, it's right there at the use stage. Usually what I'll recommend is that parents will start doing random drug testing at home and just really monitoring what's going on with their child. And if it continues, then we step it up a little bit. So then the next stage would be misuse. That's when the teen might start using alone or using in secret. Binging can happen in this stage. They begin to abandon their friends and their families to use. They might choose not to go to Christmas so they can stay at home and get high. So obviously this is like a next level situation. They'll start to feel anxious about not being able to have access to the substance of their choice. Included in this would be, for instance, like not following, like using a prescription medication off label or in a way not prescribed. So for instance, like Adderall or Ritalin, if they are starting to use that more frequently than they necessarily need to as prescribed for school, then that is considered to be misuse. Offering a medication to a friend, taking medications from friends, like for instance, taking like an opioid or something along those lines when they're not actually in pain or it's not prescribed. When they're at that stage, then we'll add another layer on to the interventions, because this is a little bit more serious and it's showing a trend toward a real problem. So you're going to want to increase those random drug tests at home, or possibly begin to have drug testing done through a agency like SOS, where it's just a very randomized thing that the kiddo will have a lot harder time manipulating a test. I would recommend also at this stage that the teen begin to engage in individual therapy with a therapist who is well trained in adolescence and adolescent drug abuse. I also would recommend that the family enter into family therapy. And through this whole process, obviously, I'm recommending family support groups like Parents Helping Parents. Then we move into the abuse stage, where they're continuing to take and use those substances with full knowledge of the harm that it's doing to their health, their well-being, to their relationships, to their work, to school. They're continuing to use, knowing that there's negative consequences in the mix, and they are not able to stop. So now we have a pretty serious program or a problem. So we might look at something like an IOP, like a intensive outpatient program, or even start to look at them entering a program such as what we have. And then the end stage would be dependence, where things are happening like they're building up a tolerance, meaning they need more of the substance to have the same level of a high. They become unable to function without the substance. They find themselves waking up in the morning, taking a drink, taking a hit in order to just be able to get up and function throughout the day. They begin to have like a real decline in their mental and physical health. You're going to start to notice that this is seriously impacting your child. And without the substance, they might start to experience withdrawal symptoms. At this stage as well, your child is consumed with this substance. It has become everything to them. They wake up in the morning wondering where they're going to get it, how they're going to get it, where they're going to use it, when they're going to use it, how they're going to hide it, how they're going to pay for it. And that is what consumes their mind through the whole entire day. They find it, they get high, they're immediately worried about where the next one's coming from. And this is the stage where we would definitely be looking at residential treatment, some sort of a long-term treatment option for that teen. Gold standard is 90 days of residential treatment. Said in Oklahoma, that's really hard to find. So sometimes we have to look outside the state or get creative with how we intervene with these kiddos. So one thing that's important is to know that you can have dependence without addiction. You can be physically dependent on a substance without necessarily being an addiction, but addiction is right around the corner. It's going to happen. If use is discovered, I think your very best option is to have an assessment done with your kiddo, just to make sure that you can find out exactly where your teen is with their using and what stage they're in and what the best intervention can be. And so one of the things that parents really struggle with is, when is it time to pull the trigger and send my kid to treatment? You know, at what point have we exhausted every option that we have, and this is what we have to do? So if you see your teen using larger amounts over longer periods of time, unsuccessful attempts to cut down or stop, even though they want to, larger amounts of time are spent finding, using, and recovering from substances. They're disconnecting from their social groups, from work, from recreational activities in order to use. They're using in dangerous situations. I mean, if they're using in situations where their life is at risk, that is you got to do something right then and there. Building a tolerance and experiencing withdrawal. When you're at that stage, I really personally feel that trying to manage this at home is no longer safe or effective, and you really need to bring in the help of professionals who can get your kiddo the help that they need. So some of the things to remember, especially when you're dealing with adolescents in general can be a very frustrating time of life. Raising an adolescent isn't easy. They have so many pressures and so many things on them now that you know, like I know I didn't have, and Derek, you probably didn't have when we were teenagers. Social media being a huge, huge issue for our teens. Social media like Snapchat, like I said earlier, Snapchat is probably the #1 way that most of the teens that I work with obtain the substances that they're using. It's prevalent, it's there. So just in general, teenagers are difficult, their behaviors are difficult. And then when you throw addiction on top of that, it can be really hard in your household. And I'm the mother of a child who struggled with addiction in their teen years. My son's now 34, and he's doing very, very well. But as an adolescent, I really didn't know if my son was going to make it. Like literally, I didn't know if he was going to survive. And I really didn't know if I was going to survive at some points because it was so difficult. I became very angry at my son, and it made it very difficult for me to interact with him in a loving and nurturing way. And I didn't have support when I was going through what I was going through with him. I think Parents Helping Parents may have been around, but I didn't know about it. No one told me about it. So in my home, things were very, very difficult. And what I didn't have then was the knowledge about addiction that I have today. And one of the reasons I do what I do, and I'm so passionate about my work, is because my goal, my hope is to prevent families from feeling as unsupported as my family felt, and from feeling as lost as my family felt in having just no idea what to do. And one of the things that I really wish that I would have known then is that addiction is a disease. You're dealing with a disease. You're dealing with a disease that is at its end terminal. It's a deadly relapse-prone disease. In AA, the term is it's a cunning and baffling disease, and it is. And so when you have this on top of just the normal teenage stuff, can really create serious problems in your relationship with your adolescent. So it's really important to find the support that that is out there now when you're dealing with these kinds of things. You don't have to be in the desert alone with this. There's lots of support that's out there. If you know where it is, find it, attach to it, cling to it, and let these people who walk this road that you're walking on right now, the ones who are a little bit further down the road, let them help you, let them show you, let them give you their experience, strength, and hope, because it's out there. You know, addiction also develops as a result of a lot of different factors. And like I said, our teens are really struggling right now. The pandemic, the impact of this isn't known yet. The research hasn't been done. The statistics aren't there. But I believe it's going to be incredibly negatively impacting our teens and our children as they grow. The isolation that they experience, the developmental things that they didn't get to, that they really didn't hit. You know, some of our teens, they didn't get to do prom, they didn't get to go to graduation. You know, there's a lot of grief over the things that have happened over the last 2 years. Many of them have lost people that they loved to something they don't really understand. And so we have trauma. Genetics come into play as well. If you know, one of the things that I do with the kids that I work with is we do a genogram, and we look at the family history of things like addiction, of trauma, mental health issues, that kind of thing. So they can actually see how it happens and the intergenerational transmission process of addiction and trauma. Because it's like I said, it's many factors that come together to put a teen at risk. And our teens throw the pandemic on top of all of that, and they're really struggling right now. the kids that we see, especially in the last maybe 3 or 4 months, they're struggling with a lot heavier things than maybe we've seen. We have students who've lost parents, who their parents have fallen into their own addictions, but because they didn't have support, they didn't have what they needed. So we're really seeing a shift, and I fear that in our field we're going to be seeing even more of this as time goes on, that the impact is going to be much greater than we really realize. So for adolescents, like I said, the treatment options are pretty limited in our state, but they're there. If you reach out to make sure your child has a therapist that they're working with. The options are there and help is available. You just have to reach out and find it. So, kind of going down the road a little bit, let's say that you do have a teen that goes to treatment, and this teen comes home, and it's almost like bringing a baby home from the hospital, because this is a whole new world for both the teen and for the families. And so when you send a teen to treatment, there's a huge investment, a financial investment, an emotional investment, a time investment. And so you want to make sure that you get the best return on the investment you have made in your child. And aftercare is critical. And many, many studies have been done on what comes together to make an adolescent be very successful in recovery. And that is multidimensional support. Micro interventions are very critical. And so that's kind of where Teen Recovery Solutions comes into play. We were actually created about 16 years ago, specifically for this reason, because the community was seeing teens coming back from treatment. They were going to their regular schools, and they were very quickly relapsing, falling back into old patterns. So our school was created to support teens who were coming home from treatment, to give them a safe place to be, where they can be with other kids who are going through the same things that they're going through, and so that they can be supported with a peer group of functional kids who are working to be in recovery. And as the time went on, what they saw was that the kids needed even more support. So our alternative peer group was formed. And the APG, as we call it, it meets after school, Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And that is where a lot of our recovery work is done and is focused. That's where the recovery groups are done. We have recovery coaches, peer recovery coaches that are they're younger people who found their own recovery as adolescents or as very young adults. One of our coaches is 21, and the other one is, I think he's 29, 28 or 29, but they're much closer in age to the teens than, say, I am. And so they can really relate well to the teens in our program. And another big part of our program is our teens being able to learn how to have fun in recovery, and that you can actually really enjoy yourself in sobriety. And the teens who come to our program that have the strong parental support, that really engage, that really do the deal, they are quite successful long term. So we're really proud of what we do at TRS, and we really love the difference that we make. One of the things that we struggle with, however, is that we feel like there's a lot more kids who could benefit from our program than are actually accessing our program. It's not just for students or teens coming out of treatment. Because of the current situation with treatment in Oklahoma, what we're seeing more and more is kids just coming to us for recovery support without being able to go to treatment. So it's kind of changed the way that we intervene and the support that we give. But what hasn't changed is that our mission and our goal is to reclaim teens from addiction and to reunite families and to solidify the family unit to support long-term recovery for our teens in Oklahoma. My dog. So that's all I've really got for tonight. Are there questions, Derek?
Awesome. So I've got a couple of questions, or at
Sure.
least one question that I would like your feedback on.
Uh-huh.
And it's a question that I get asked fairly regularly from different parents, and I'm not exactly sure. It's been a while since I've worked with kiddos, actually, so I haven't been asked it in a while. But I think for lots of people, there's a certain expectation for adolescence that there may be some experimentation with alcohol or with weed, and those type things, especially through the later high school years and college years. So, what should parents expect in terms of like what would be quote unquote like normal experimentation, and what are like where's the line that they should say this is something we have to address?
So the way I see normal experimentation is using like hanging out with friends at parties, social situations after a game, at something along those lines, when they're with a group of friends that are maybe smoking, drinking, whatever. To me, where the line is when that using shifts to something that they are doing to manage something in their life. Maybe it's depression, maybe it's school stress, family issues. The using shifts from just being fun, maybe one weekend a month, to being something that they're utilizing to solve a problem. That's when to me it crosses a line. Also, when the using shifts from maybe smoking with a group of friends, for instance, to shutting yourself in your closet in your house and using alone. That indicates that the using has gone from experimentation or social use to a level that needs to be looked at.
I've done 1,000 meetings. I'll leave myself on mute. It's like I can't ever learn how to do it right. Okay, yeah, I think that's great information. So, one question that I ask everybody that comes on, and I want to ask you too, just because I love to hear people's different responses. If there's a struggling person out there that's watching this, maybe they're struggling with substance use disorder, or if a family who's really struggling is watching this, if you had like 90 seconds to deliver like a single kind of one thread message to families that are struggling, what would that be?
So if you're a family and you are struggling and you are looking for support, the one avenue, of course, is us. One of the services that we offer are adolescent drug and alcohol screenings. That is a service that we offer to the community. We offer this on a sliding scale. So if you have a kiddo and you don't know what's going on and you would just really like to have some direction, some answers, give us a call at Teen Recovery Solutions, and I can do that assessment, and I will do a report, and I will also make referrals and help a parent get wherever they need to go, even though it may not be with us. I'm going to hook that person up with every resource that I can find. Find your community resources and use them. That's my biggest thing. Shame is a big thing in families that are dealing with this kind of thing. Shame lies, and shame also supports these problems. So you got to just work through the shame. Know you're not the only people who are dealing with this, and reach out, be honest, be open about what's happening in your home. There is help.
Yeah, excellent. Hey, Annette, thank you for doing this for us. I really appreciate it. But not only that, thank you for everything you do in the recovery community and for Teen Recovery Solutions. It's a fantastic organization, and I know that you guys are reaching and helping a lot of kids, and you're making a difference in people's lives, and you deserve a thank you. So I appreciate you being here and taking time out of your Monday night to do this for us. And everybody that was watching and that's joined us, thank you so much. If you're watching this after the fact, or maybe you're catching this on YouTube, if you're interested in more information about Teen Recovery Solutions, I have tagged both their website and Facebook page in the comments section of this video on the Parents Helping Parents Inc. Facebook page. So that's how you can find it. Facebook at Parents Helping Parents Inc. Videos, today's date, comments, there's all the information you might need. So thank you guys for being here. We'll see everybody in 2 weeks. And Anna, thanks again. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.